McGraw in the Morning continues on the Big 550 KTRS.
940 on KTRS. Scott Sherman with us talking about these seemingly unrelated news stories of the last couple of weeks of the St. Louisan, the prison official, was killed in his house. Right? He was
Tom Clements, who worked in the Missouri Department of Corrections for 30-something years and was the head of the adult prison system up until just a few years ago when he went to Colorado.
This is where news in the 21st century is interesting. You might hear that these people are killed, but they don't make the connection. And now they're saying the connections from all these law enforcement officials getting murdered is that the Aryan Nation has teamed up with the Mexican cartel, because the Mexican cartel, now the officials are saying, wants to own all of the distribution channels, like a Walmart does.
And here's the thing. What is the one weakness of a Mexican drug cartel on their distribution? The way that their distributors look and speak. So if you can have a connection where they look American or white, they don't look Mexican, and they don't speak Spanish or with a thick accent, i.e. hooking up with this group of Aryan Brotherhood, white supremacist drug gangs, now you've got the perfect distribution system. You've got the wholesale distributors down in Mexico making and producing and harvesting this stuff, bringing it across the border by either bribing Border Patrol agents or finding a way into this country. Then once they hit the border, teaming up with this gang of outlaws who are white dudes who speak at least some form of English without an accent.
Right.
I don't know how good their English is. And then they can hit the local scene.
Here's what I find fascinating. You look at gambling, okay? Gambling is now legal almost everywhere. And the gambling lobby said, hey, we can make more money just outside of Vegas if we expand gambling. And so they expanded gambling, and now it's everywhere. And so they went to the politicians, paid off the politicians. The politicians were for it, or however, state referendums or whatever. With legalizing drugs, the people who are making the most money don't want it legalized because they're the ones who are going to be hurt if it becomes legal.
That's right. We've emboldened and empowered them.
Right.
In particular, look at how it's scheduled. And this is how it's scheduled 1 through 4, 1 through 5. The DEA has a chart. Marijuana is scheduled with LSD and with GHB, like drugs.
I think like heroin, too. It's on the...
And heroin.
Right.
So why is marijuana in the same category as heroin? There is no reason for that other than the way it was done in the 1970s. President Nixon, who created the DEA, hated all kinds of drugs, so they put marijuana on that list. The overwhelming medical evidence is that it doesn't belong there. So if it doesn't belong there, then they can focus in on things that do belong
But
there.
people who are against legalizing drugs say, oh my goodness, I don't want my child to be able to go to a drugstore and buy a carton of pot. So, no, ma'am, nobody wants that either. But right now, your son is going to the corner locker room and buying marijuana from Finesse.
Yeah. Now, and what you're also not getting to the folks that are now have kids that are in high school, and they should get it because they're products of the 60s and 70s, is that the supply and demand is going to override any kind of potential criminalization. Kids don't care about maybe getting caught. It actually makes it kind of exciting. What's this all about?
I don't know. I mean, there's pluses and minuses with that.
Let's say the kids are like, oh, it's illegal. So they want to know what it's all about. Now, I'm not an expert. You and I both have a lot of respect for Percy and Sunil Menzies, who talk about this as a gateway drug. But in states like Colorado that not only passed legalized marijuana for medicinal purposes, but for recreational purposes, now the government can actually have some control over it, regulate how much you can have, tax it, and take the profit out of it for the cartels.
I'm not so sure marijuana is a gateway drug. Now, yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. But you and I have both been told that it is. But I'm not an expert in it. But I don't think there's enough evidence to show the difference between marijuana being a gateway drug and alcohol being a gateway drug. What's in the medicine cabinet, which is the biggest gateway drug, which is this, folks. If you have a prescription for some kind of opiate-based narcotic, Vicodin, Percocet, something like that, what's the gateway drug to heroin? Your kid's getting in your medicine cabinet for your prescription that you leave in there, and that's what you're getting them into heroin on. That's completely legal, but it's a definite gateway. But here's the gateway. Marijuana being illegal is a gateway to drug cartels.
I don't think legalizing drugs, and I'm there on I'll tell you where I am on this. Marijuana tomorrow.
Very good. I'm with you on that.
But even me, who has talked to all the experts, has looked at all the data, I still have a hard time coming to grips with legalizing heroin or legalizing meth.
I agree with you.
And or cocaine. Even though it's the same arguments, I still am not at cocaine, heroin, and meth yet.
Me neither. But on marijuana, this is why we have the Sinaloa, Gulf, and Zeta drug cartels. It's not because of meth and cocaine and heroin. It's because of marijuana. That's where they got their money. It's like McDonald's got famous because of hamburgers, not because of chicken McNuggets. This is why we have the Mexican drug cartels that are murdering tens of thousands of their own people, and why they're hooking up now, at least on the issue of distributing meth, through this Aryan Brotherhood, which the U.S. government, the feds, have indicted. Listen to these charming names. Big Terry, Slick, Diesel, Dutch, Baby Huey, Dirty. These are the nicknames of just a few of the high-ranking Aryan Brotherhood prison gangs that are running the methamphetamine distribution for these drug cartels. And it's hitting the streets, and it has cost the lives of some very decent people, high-profile people.
I also think when you talk about legalizing drugs, I also think that to the person who calls up who says, I don't want my kid getting on drugs and I don't want it to be legal. Whether it's legal or illegal is not going to determine whether or not your kid gets messed up with drugs. I truly believe that. It's because there are kids in high school in St. Louis who are dying of heroin overdoses.
Yeah.
That's illegal. It's not going to go up or down if it's, well, I don't think there's any proof that it goes up if it's legalized. I think there's lots of proof that it goes down if it's legalized. But there are people who are still going to die from a heroin overdose if it's legalized. The same arguments over you can't ban guns, right? Because guns, only the bad guys will have guns. But let's ban marijuana because that'll solve the problem, right? Yeah. I mean, they're arguing while this gun debate is going on in America. They're arguing, and you could superimpose those same arguments on why marijuana should be legalized.
And they're arguing against history.
Right.
Look at what happened during Prohibition. We have a 20-year history in the 20th century of the failure of Prohibition. It absolutely failed. And what happened? A small group of very powerful gangs supplied people with exactly what it was that they wanted and safer versions of it. So when you had Capone's group or the Purple Gang in Detroit bringing this kind of whiskey and other distilled items over from Windsor, that was better than the bathtub gin that the local people were brewing. So on the issue of marijuana, what you have is you have an illegal drug that's only illegal because the DEA says it's illegal, that they ignore the science, and then we've emboldened a criminal organization, namely the Mexican drug gangs, that weren't this powerful 25 or even 30 years ago because we weren't inundated with pot. We were inundated with cocaine, and it's almost too late. Now they're diversifying into other things. On the marijuana front, it is time to take the lead, at least of Colorado and Washington and Oregon, but for the feds to decriminalize it. If they moved it off of Schedule 1 and put their resources into fighting gangs, like real threats to our country, as though it's Homeland Security.
Well,
that would be smart.
The fact that we're locking up marijuana smokers in prison and our tax dollars are going towards that is ridiculous.
Look what happened in San Diego last year. They busted up a fraternity party full of kids smoking pot. Wow, imagine that. Took one of the kids, put him in the DEA office down in San Diego, and forgot he was there for 5 days, and he almost died. He had to go, 127 hours on everybody. He was in their building. That is such a misuse of resources. And in the meantime, the guy who's actually trying to prevent kids from getting onto crystal meth and preventing these gangs, and I say prison gang, 80% of people in federal prison get out.
Right.
So you learn how to be, and you get indoctrinated into the Aryan Brotherhood when you're in prison. But then you get out and you work for them when you're on the outside.
Well,
this isn't just in prison.
Every dollar that is used to arrest somebody to stop the marijuana trade is a dollar taken away from all of the other harsher, more difficult drugs to stop.
And money that's not spent on treatment programs that work, like ARCA does, not a commercial for ARCA, but we have to get kids off of stuff that's killing them and be smart about things that aren't killing them. Marijuana doesn't kill anybody.
I'll leave you with what Jason Grellner tells us all the time. He says that the meth epidemic is funneling the heroin epidemic and vice versa. Because now, and we're short on time here, but just if you take the meth cold medicine pills off the shelves and make them prescription, that's not going to solve the meth problem. There's still going to be a meth problem now. You make it harder for these people to sort of get the meth.
Or you make the Mexican drug gangs even more powerful.
Or you make the Mexican drug deals even right. No, I agree with you on that. But the heroin dealers or the heroin addicts are paying people to get the cold medicine. To get the cold medicine, then to buy that on the black market, then feeds the heroin crisis.
The zombies are up and they're out on the streets.
And that's right.
What's up.
It's a scary deal. All right. Thank you, Scott Sherman. Who's your sponsor, Scott Sherman?
Of course, St. Louis Home Retention Group. Here's the thing, McGraw. More than half of the people in this country are eligible to have their home mortgage rate refinanced. And not just refinanced, but cut almost in half. Mine went from 7% to 2% because of St. Louis Home Retention Group. Half of these people don't even know that they're eligible. And the reason they don't know is that a lot of places claim that they can do this, but they can't. St. Louis Home Retention Group is not one of those places. A 90+% success rate on getting people refinanced under a variety of federal programs that were basically the booby prize for what the home mortgage industry did to us. They blew up our housing bubble. St. Louis Home Retention Group knows how you can fix that problem, take advantage of these rates. You should give them a call. 90% plus success rate. St. Louis Home Retention Group. 636-527-5121, 636-527-5121, or stlouishomeretentiongroup.com.
This Monday, it's the biggest holiday on the St. Louis calendar. Opening Day. Need we say more?
Well, then who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who?
I'm asking you.
Join KTRS